You ever been around another adult when they suddenly start sulking or throwing a mini tantrum or just completely dodging their responsibilities and you feel this wave of just intense irritation? Well, you are definitely not alone. It's something we all experience, but it's also a deeply psychological thing. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what's happening inside our minds when we get triggered like that. Let's get into it.
So let's start with the big question. Why does this kind of behavior get under our skin so much? I mean, it's not just a minor annoyance, is it? The reaction can feel so powerful, almost automatic. Well, the answer, it's actually pretty complex. It's got roots in our personal history, the unwritten rules of our society, and even in the basic wiring of our brains. Okay, first things first, let's be super clear about something. We're not talking about healthy, joyful, childlike qualities here. Things like curiosity, being spontaneous, and just genuine playfulness, those are actually signs of a really healthy mind. What we're focusing on is that triggering immaturity. You know, the tantrums, the pouting and sulking when things don't go their way, and that deliberate avoidance of adult responsibilities. That's the stuff that gets us. All right, so the first layer here, the most straightforward reason for our reaction, it's all about rules. Not written laws, but that unspoken social contract of adulthood that honestly we all lean on to feel stable and secure when we're dealing with each other.
And this tension we feel, it actually has a name: cognitive dissonance. See, our brains have this strong, usually unconscious set of expectations for how an adult is supposed to act. You know, regulate your emotions, communicate clearly, be kind of predictable. So when we see another adult just shatter those rules, it creates this mental conflict, this real sense of tension.
I mean, does that little voice in your head sound familiar? This question. It's the perfect way to describe that cognitive dissonance. It comes from this feeling of, hey, this is unfair. We're putting in all this effort to be emotionally regulated and responsible, and when someone else just isn't, it feels like they're breaking the deal. And here's the key, that mental discomfort, that feeling of unfairness and unpredictability, it has to go somewhere. And for most of us, that psychological tension just converts right into the raw emotion of irritation or frustration. We're not just reacting to what they did, we're reacting to them breaking a fundamental social rule. Okay, so the social rules explain why it's annoying, but it doesn't really explain the intensity, right? Why does it sometimes feel so personal, so completely overwhelming? For that, we've got to go deeper. We have to look into our own personal history. And this is where it gets really, really personal. When your reaction feels way bigger than the situation, like you feel white-hot anger just because someone is pouting, that is a huge sign. It tells us that the trigger is almost certainly activating something deep inside our own emotional blueprint, something from our past. What's really incredible is how fast this all happens. It's a lightning-quick chain reaction. So, step 1, you see the behavior. Let's say an adult is giving you the silent treatment. Step 2, your brain, which is a master pattern recognition machine, instantly links that feeling to a stored memory, maybe a parent who did the same thing. Step 3, before your logical mind even knows what's happening, your body is already having a defensive reaction. Your jaw might clench, your stomach tightens, and only then, step 4, does that disproportionate emotion of irritation or anger just flood your system. And that really gets to the heart of it. Your brain isn't carefully analyzing if the current situation is a real threat. No way. It's just recognizing an emotional similarity to something from the past, and it's hitting the big red alarm bell. That intense feeling you get, it's the echo of old, unfinished emotional business that's demanding your attention right here, right now. So we have the social contract, and we have our personal history. But now we're going to peel back one final layer to look at the fundamental and often completely unconscious psychological mechanics that are driving these incredibly powerful reactions. So there are these 4 deep drivers often bubbling up under the surface. We're going to break down a few of them because getting them is really the key to the whole picture. We'll look at how we project our own issues onto others, our brain's deep need for safety, and the sheer work it takes to manage another person's emotions. Things like our fundamental attachment style also play a huge role, but for now, let's just focus on these 3. Okay, let's start with projection, because this one is fascinating. Imagine you grew up in a family where you were always told to stop crying or be serious. So you learned to suppress that vulnerable emotional side of yourself just to feel safe or loved. Now, fast forward years later, and you meet an adult who is freely and dramatically emotional. That irritation you feel, it might actually be hiding some discomfort or maybe even envy.
You're reacting so strongly because they're displaying a freedom you were never allowed to have yourself. Next up is something called emotional labor. Now, while you can't, put an exact number on it, just think of it like this. Your brain's workload just shot up maybe by 75% or even more when you're dealing with immaturity. Emotional labor is that exhausting, often invisible effort of managing not just your own feelings, but someone else's too. You have to calm them down, figure out what their sulking means, and walk on eggshells around them. It's incredibly draining, and when that effort isn't returned, it often shows up as just chronic irritability.
And then there's just our biology, our basic need for control. See, our nervous system is fundamentally wired to look for patterns and predictability. It's how we feel safe. Immature behavior, setting mood swings, impulsive choices, is the very definition of unpredictable. To our nervous system, that erratic behavior can feel like a threat, and it activates stress hormones that put us into a defensive state. So part of that irritation is actually a biological stress response.
Okay, so we've dug into all the reasons why this happens. But the big question is, what do we actually do with this information? This last part is all about reframing the entire experience. It's about shifting our view from seeing a trigger as just a problem to seeing it as an incredibly valuable tool for self-awareness. Seriously, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. A trigger is not a weakness. It's a signal. It's like a blinking light on your emotional dashboard, and it's pointing directly to something inside of you that needs to be looked at, understood, and maybe even healed. And that brings the whole focus right back to you. The next time you feel that flash of irritation at someone's childish behavior, instead of focusing all your energy on them, just pause for a second and ask yourself this question: what information is this reaction trying to give me about me? So what could that blinking light be pointing to? Well, it could be an echo of your childhood, replaying an old, familiar dynamic. It could be revealing a part of yourself that you've pushed down, just like we talked about with projection. Maybe it's a simple sign that you're totally burned out and you have zero capacity left for that emotional labor. Or, hey, sometimes it's not that complicated at all. It's a healthy signal that someone is legitimately violating your boundaries.
And that is the ultimate goal here. Understanding your triggers gives you back the power of choice. It creates this tiny little space between the stimulus, the immature behavior, and your response. And in that space, you can move from an automatic, unconscious reaction to a conscious, intentional response. You can decide to communicate your needs clearly instead of just getting angry.
And I just want to leave you with this really powerful redefinition of maturity. See, true maturity isn't about being rigid and serious all the time. It's about having access to those wonderful childlike qualities of joy and playfulness, but also integrating them with adult accountability and emotional regulation. So, at the end of the day, exploring our triggers, it isn't just some intellectual exercise. It is a real path to regaining control over our own emotional lives. By understanding the deep psychological systems at play, our memories, our needs, our suppressed selves, we stop being a puppet to our own reactions, and we start moving toward true emotional freedom.